I'm Ken Gammerman. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Finance, and in the absence of our Chairman, Matt Hoey, who is out of town this week, I'm pleased to call the meeting of April 17th, 2017 to order, and we'll proceed first with public forum, which is a limited time, but we don't seem to have anybody here to address public forum. Am I mistaken, or is there someone who would like to address public forum? I am not mistaken. We'll proceed then with the approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve tonight. The first is the set of March 9th, of the budget workshop of March 9th, which we are removing from the table because Mr. McKenzie had some questions, I believe.
No, I just had one correction,
yes,
which I emailed to you guys today, actually. So if you want to read it in and...
Oh, you did?
I didn't get it.
I haven't checked my email in a couple hours.
I got it,
Yeah.
Ken. You did.
So I can just read it to you. It's basic.
Why don't you read it
It's
to
just...
We'll read it into the records.
We can just read it, and then I think we can go ahead and approve it, because it's...
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think you'll have a problem. I wrote, hello, everyone. At last month's regular meeting, we agreed to table approval of the meeting minutes mentioned above, pending changes requested by Ken McKenzie, specifically at the bottom of page 3, second paragraph up. The current paragraph begins, Mr. McKenzie said ideally, end quote, quote unquote. I would like to replace the paragraph with the following. Mr. McKenzie, and Tracy, you don't have to write this down, I sent you the email as well. Mr. McKenzie said ideally he was hoping they could delay the referendum. It is difficult to craft a budget without more information on what the state budget is likely to look like, specifically regarding revenues to municipalities. He added that he can recommend cuts, but both the Board of Ed and the town put together good, responsible budgets. The state is going to need to collect additional revenues either through higher sales tax, income taxes, or from municipalities, quotes, higher property taxes, end quotes. While he doesn't think the town will be saddled with a portion of the teacher's pension per the original governor's budget proposal, he does believe that the state will be able to extract money by reducing ECS and ECG monies to municipalities. He thinks the current budget revenue assumptions are overly optimistic in those areas. Mr. McKenzie said he is also not in favor of supplemental tax bills. If further state revenue cuts come to fruition, are we planning on using the rainy day fund? An alternative is to lower the revenue expectations from the state and increase the mill rate, thereby preserving the general fund.
All right.
So 2 or 3 of those sentences were pretty much verbatim, and 2 or 3 was just some grammar and one misrepresentation.
We have the amended minutes before us. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
I had one.
Did you get to read that at all, or you got the
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I may have gotten an email, but okay. I'm going to accept what you said.
Okay.
No, there was one other thing that I don't know if it was on the last. We can make other revisions if we find something right from.
Sure.
Yeah,
it was
we
just. It was.
So yeah, you can do it.
I just want to make sure it was clear. And the paragraph above, and it says, Mr. Mazza said after the board, my revisions hit. That should be made. I just thought that the "my" could be interpreted. So, but that was it.
After the board, my revision?
I would say Mr. Mazza said after my revisions,
Board made revisions.
the board still felt more was needed. It just looks like...
Yeah, after the board made my
Said after the board
revisions,
made
still felt,
revisions,
yeah.
it still
Yeah.
felt, yeah. But the "my" was
okay.
could be
Well, that's
misleading
just
to somebody
hanging
who
out
was
there.
reading it.
Hanging out there in space.
Okay, that's
Are
it.
there any further revisions to what we've just taken off the table? Motion to accept?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
I abstain too.
Oh, you weren't there.
But I could
So are
abstain
we
anyway.
able to,
I think we can.
with 3, I think we can.
Yeah.
We've
I
got a
think we
quorum,
can.
so we've got a majority of.
Abstaining,
Yeah.
Okay. Now move to the budget workshop minutes of March 13th. Are there any comments on those minutes?
I
Peter,
have,
go ahead.
I have
Peter?
one.
Go ahead.
Basically, on page 3, it says, Mr. Gold said he has spoken to people in other districts where there are math coaches. Okay, I didn't speak to people in other districts. I spoke to math coaches, or one coach in New York City, and then I spoke to 2 individuals that are administrators one in Maine and one in Pennsylvania. So it wasn't other districts, but 2 states and an actual math coach in the city of New York.
You want to take a pass at revising your...
But is the gist of it that the math coaches also teach additional classes for
That's right.
gifted students?
Yes.
So,
So just other
just because they're out of
states.
state, they're still in other districts. I don't know whether you mean, feel free to make the change if you want, but I don't know that it's...
Well, I mean, it's just not what I said.
Okay.
So, I mean,
You were talking about, I think the gist of your point, Peter, was that math coaches in at least one other, maybe more than one other place, do teach,
right.
as well as coach. And that's a point that should be included in the minutes. Any others on the 13th?
I had 2. Same
Right.
page, starting on page 3. Right in the middle paragraph, or just below it, Mr. Mazza noted that if the board cuts, the Board of Selectmen more than $75,000, he would like to add an additional appropriation. I believe that should be bond appropriation.
Yeah, that was for bonding.
Right, just to make sure it's clear where that would be going. And then on the last page, just a typo or an autocorrect, as we all love now. Right at the beginning, he added that he is disappointed to see cuts on the budget side.
What page, I'm sorry, where are you?
Last page.
Last
Last
page.
page, right at the top sentence. Side instead of sign.
I had an amendment on page 2 of the minutes. Chairman said that they heard a lot from the BOE about return on investment, but have not heard from the town regarding their sense of a return on investment on the budget. And I wanted to amend that. This is not what I said. Have not heard from the town regarding the extensive activities that constitute an ROI that really amount to the kinds of activities that the town has been engaged in. Because Mr. Mazza then proceeded to chronicle fire, police, engineering, public works, and some of the other agencies to indicate what they did on behalf of the town, and I wanted that identified as such. Anything? Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Now let's go on to the minutes of the 20th. Any comments on that?
Go ahead.
I have a very quick one. On page 2, I was not abstaining. It was the meeting I came back for. We're proud to be at that meeting, so I voted in favor.
Okay.
Matt, Mike?
Page 12, under item 10. Although Ken might have picked this up already, Mr. McKenzie. Mr. McKenzie stated there is a chance, is it a change?
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
And next page, 13. Paragraph that starts, second full paragraph, Mr. Ailes said what was discussed at the special meeting is that while the selectmen do a lot of work around town, if you could change they to the town has other volunteers. And there was one small typo down below where, again, it starts with Mr. Ailes and it would be said. They want to attract people.
On that same page, before you turn the page, down there at motion, I think that, I wasn't here when you made the motion, but I think it should read, it says, upon a motion made by Mr. Gammerman and seconded by Mr. Federici, the board voted unanimously to reduce the Board of Selectmen's salary beginning on July 1st, 2018 to $8,000 for a 4-year period. I would put annually in there somewhere.
That's, yes, good.
I assume that's what you decided.
Yeah, we didn't make that big of a reduction.
Yeah.
That would have been a severe reduction. While we're at that, on the top of page 13, I believe we said we would be rounding out the first selectman's new salary so that it would kind of come to a flat figure, not 114,714 or 113,019. I believe we would round that out. Do you recall that conversation?
I remember we did the math, but now I don't recall what those numbers
Nobody
were.
rounded that out?
No, we did. I think we just wanted to make sure that it wasn't in cents or anything like
We
that.
did that in deference
Jeff,
to
do you-
Mr. Gold.
Do you recall?
I think that was.
Because you were double checking my numbers.
Yeah, right.
I said,
We
please
agreed to
double
round
check my
that
numbers.
out
I think we did.
So,
so that Mitch would have a
with
bit
a,
easier
Right,
process.
right. I don't recall what the exact numbers were,
I don't
though.
either, but, I mean,
Well,
those, how much more do we want to round them? I mean,
Those are the numbers.
were those the numbers? Thank you.
that were rounded
I
out?
can't remember.
You only rounded the.
We just wanted to get the cents out of it. We didn't want to have any,
Okay.
Whether that was your
any
intent or
cents.
not, I don't know, but you only rounded the pennies.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay,
fine.
then that's fine.
That's fine. So much for making it easy, which made it more difficult by doing that.
Just for yourselves.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the third set of minutes? We'll entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain, I was not here.
Minutes are approved. Put this down under old business. Standing Building Committee comes up next. Well, before I get to that, I don't know whether this is out of order or not, but we don't have a position for it on the agenda. Is there anyone who wanted to add anything to the Bloom Shapiro report?
For the audit?
Yeah, for the audit.
What do you mean add anything to it?
I think we said at the last meeting that we would consider whether we had any additions, amendments, or questions, just questions.
I think it was questions.
It was just questions on the audit.
I did have several questions. I didn't think we were going to address it at this meeting. I got the sense that we would forward them to the auditor for clarification. We didn't really go into that. She implied that she would come back and sit with us sometime if we had questions. That was my interpretation of it. Or we could ask Mary Jane or someone to forward questions to
I
her.
think that we could put the questions together and forward them directly to Ms. Shapiro. If they felt they needed to come in person, certainly they could, or if you'd like to have them come. Otherwise, they might be questions she could just answer, either to me that I could report back or directly to you, however you prefer.
I think the way it was left was that if we were to review them, now that we received them, if we had any questions, to forward them to either Matt or to the finance
And
office.
nobody did yet. I don't
I
believe.
didn't
Not
have
yet.
any.
I didn't receive any.
Yeah. So if Ken, if you had any, I would say that you'd probably just forward them on. Or
So,
unless you were to do
I would suggest that we all forward questions to Mary Jane, and who can then consolidate all the questions so that we
Like the
all
next
see
meeting.
so we can all see the questions that were asked, and we can even present the questions to them and get some answers back, and maybe that'll solve the problem. But I think we should all see
I
the
agree.
questions, especially if we have similar questions. It might spark another thought. Is that right? Will that work for you? If we forward you any questions that we have?
Why don't you give a week, for questions,
Yeah.
and then I can put them together and maybe have answers for your next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. So we needn't add this as an agenda item at the next meeting. You'll bring that back to us.
Yep, Tracy will take care of
Okay,
that.
Okay.
that's good.
Great.
All right, let's move on to correspondence. We have two sets of minutes from the Standing Building Committee. The one's on March 7th and then on March 23rd. Are there any questions from folks on the minutes of March 7th?
Just to recap real quick. The March minutes we had not received last meeting. Now we have them. So I had reported on a couple of questions that I had, so now that you all have them in totality, you could ask any questions. And then on the April meeting, I was not able to attend based on the town meeting on the budget, but I also didn't have any issues to relay on. So I wasn't in attendance in April, but we also did not receive the April minutes yet.
Anyone
There were, go ahead.
with questions on the March 7th?
That's the first. So a couple, I think there was one on this one that caught my eye. The first was number 7, where Silver Petroselli submitted a proposal for $17,000. The other 3 proposals were $31,000, $29,000, and $27,000. So it's $10,000 lower than the low one.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Gurnham commented that he believes it would be possible to use Silver Petroselli even though they are not on the on-call list. So they decided to go with the $27,000 one, CWA, but I just thought it was a little odd that, I know we have the on-call list, and I think I understand how it works, but I also know we do a lot of business with Silver Petroselli, so it's not as if, and the person that we used doesn't have, it was noted that they don't have a significant amount of experience, so it just seemed odd that there's one that's significantly lower than the others, then they get tossed out, so I thought I just noticed that.
Well, there's another issue there as well, that the Standing Building Committee did set up a list of on-call architects and then agreed to bypass that list in point 7 as well.
Well, the committee did not.
The committee did not.
It was basically a stray proposal that was received by a former firm that worked with the town in the building committee. Mr. Orenstein being an attorney in construction law, I would probably look to his comment being that he believes that firm should be selected from the on-call list is a very valid one. I know if I was a firm that was on an on-call list and another firm that was not on the on-call list submitted a bid, I would be pretty upset about it. So
How many?
there's 4.
4 on the on-call list?
And Silver Petroselli is not on it. But
Did they apply to be on it?
yeah, I don't know that for a fact because I'm not sure who the submissions were from, but they've been on the on-call before, and they've done work with the town before.
I believe
I know
it's-
we see their name all the time.
Yeah, but for this particular on-call that was selected, the building committee went with a different 4. I don't know the reason for that.
So maybe the process needs to be
Yeah, my concern
looked at a
is the
little bit.
process, because I don't believe, Mike, correct me on this one, that they've had the on-call architects for very long. I think this has been a process perhaps for 2 years.
No, they haven't, but the reason that they have an on-call list and the municipalities go that way is to save time and eliminate the whole process of going out to public bid every single time you have a project. So this,
Right, because you're always going to have somebody who's going to come in low, and if they aren't on there, and then you question their credentials.
Right.
But in this case, I think we've done a lot of, so.
I'm more curious
it just
why a
seems
firm
little
not
odd.
on the on-call list submitted. And
Yeah,
so I'd like to ask that question as well when I get in front of them. And I could actually ask that question separately of Cliff or of
all right.
the chairman.
Because these are their own procedures.
Yes.
Just revealing my own ignorance, the on-call list, is that project-specific or is that townwide?
No,
or-
as long as a project fits in a certain threshold and does not go over that threshold, they have an on-call list that you could select from you can ask any of those 4.
I see.
You could either ask them or you can have them bid against each other for the project. But once it hits a certain threshold, and I don't remember what that number is, Linda may or may not know, I don't remember what it is, but regardless, that amount would have to go out to public. And the on-call list no longer exists. It has to go out to open bid.
Thank you.
Any further questions on the minutes of March 7th? The minutes of March 23rd from Standing Building. Any comments on that?
That was the one where there was the selection, correct,
Mm-hmm.
of the bid for Baldwin?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is on the Baldwin, and references were made to shortcomings, perhaps, is that a good way to describe it, on the Adams Window project.
Yes.
And a question about the subs that were used by Orlando Anuli. Perhaps you could fill us in.
I will reiterate, I won't go into a lot of detail, but Orlando Anuli was on a project at Adams that one of the subs of the windows, who's no longer in business, put them in a very bad position by saying they could do the job and get the materials in time, and they did not do that, and it affected the entire project. So they they took the fall for it. There was another issue that was mentioned about the concrete problem that it didn't meet. It didn't meet the testing requirement, but they fixed that at no cost. Other projects they've worked on have been very successful. So
And the late timing that's cited is nothing to do with,
no,
okay?
no. And if the building committee feels comfortable with it, I would be confident in that.
So they're comfortable going ahead with
Yep.
OA on that.
Yes.
Any other comments on the Standing Building Committee's minutes of March 23rd?
To the same point with the brick, the $200,000 or $300,000 difference comparing apples to apples, it's sort of implied that the cost would have been the same had they gone with the
lowest
with
submitted
the
bid.
lowest submitted bid, the THP or whoever it was.
Yeah, that's the way I read
But
it.
it's implied, but it's not really stated.
Correct. Again, that's the way I read it, but I'm not. I was not at that
So-
special meeting, so. Is that something you want me to bring back? and ask
I'd be
them?
curious to.
Yeah, there were a
About
couple
the fact that
questions
we-
that you could bring up.
It's lower by 2 to 300. The bid was lower, and it didn't include some brickwork, which they say would cost an additional $200,000 to $300,000, and we are awarding it for the total of $1.5 million. So that implies that the firm that didn't get it submitted a bid of around 1.2, 1.3, but it doesn't say that, so we don't really know what their bid actually was.
But the winning bidder was,
The
according to minutes,
1.5.
the next lowest bidder,
Right.
except for THP, right. But you're right, it doesn't clarify what the
I can
variance was
clarify that
between.
at the next meeting. Yeah.
Any comments on the pension committee minutes of March 22nd?
Yeah. I find these minutes, with the exception of 1 month after we sort of asked for more information, I felt like we got more information. I find these minutes to be basically close to being useless. The Wells Fargo advisors, Mr. Tom Bavona, it says the quarterly report was distributed to the pension committee. I thought we were actually going to be getting these quarterly reports ourselves. That was one of the things that we talked about so we could see the results. The next line, it says, it was a weak quarter for all managers. That's it. Okay, so how much were they down? How much for all the other, we get no information at all. So they must have addressed it in the meeting. So either they didn't address it in the meeting, which is ridiculous, or it was addressed and it's just not in the minutes, which is also ridiculous in my opinion. So
Well, they
to
seem-
me, I don't learn anything from this.
Well, they seem to be requesting additional information from Wells Fargo. And I-
This is Mr. Bavona is the advisor from Wells Fargo, and if you recall the last month, somebody pointed out, what was the oddity in last month's statement? He was asked
To compare it to other areas. but
something.
compare what?
It couldn't. No,
Yeah.
there was that, and then there was another one where they said they couldn't do it, and we were all. Everybody was surprised that wasn't that their job function that they. And they allegedly they couldn't.
But we
do
have a
it.
spreadsheet all the time, every month in
So
terms
anyway,
of performance.
that's my only comment. When I see a line, it was a weak quarter for all managers, and you don't tell us the results. And I thought we were actually going to get the results.
There was a
But we were getting basically the breakdown in terms of each manager's
getting like
performance. Yeah, we were getting that.
Eight
So, I
that
mean,
by
that-
14 that was like
Yeah.
you'd fold it out and look at all those.
We got that once or twice. It's been a
Yeah.
while since we've gotten it. And then I thought we were told that we were going to get it either monthly or at least quarterly.
Well, basically, if we
mean, we're
received
not-
that and we had basically the benchmark on each category, that would give us, a hands-on review of the performance.
Yeah, but the point is we're
not
not
getting
getting
it.
it.
But I
the
mean,
whole
that-
point.
that's what we need to
Yeah,
get.
I'll
Yeah.
take anything, but we're not getting
Do we
anything.
want to get a detailed monthly
I mean,
report?
if we want.
Well, I think we asked. I think it's.
Mary Jane may
I would
have-
like to get whatever is. There's something out there. We would just like to see
Mary
what
Jane
that
may
is.
have
I believe you're referring to the report that does list all the
Yes.
asset
Yes.
managers.
Yes.
My office prepares that monthly for the pension committee. We do that this week. may or may not get it to you early enough for your packets, but I could certainly bring it to the meeting if nothing else.
Great.
But certainly, I can easily bring that
It was,
to...
we were receiving that prior to your arrival here. And
I just didn't
we-
want to give it
and
to you, I guess.
I doubt that's the case. But, if we could receive that, even if it's a month behind, at least we have some historical knowledge.
Sure.
Correct, we
That'd
just
be great.
completed, March's, for tomorrow's meeting, by the time we get the information from Wells Fargo. But, sometimes you might get it in your packets ahead of time and sometimes not, but I can certainly be sure you have it each month.
It actually
Thank you.
may be
That'd be
helpful.
great.
It actually may be helpful if we get the one that is referred to in the minutes. We don't necessarily need to have it, at least wouldn't need to have it before the meeting, but to compare it
Right. Well,
with
they're
what's
referring
being said
to an
would be
actual
helpful.
report generated by Tom Bavona's office. It's, pages long. Mine is more of a snapshot of what that month looked like. So I believe what you were discussing earlier was Mr. Bavona's report, which was for the quarter, which is different than what you would get from my, 8.5 by 14 piece of paper.
Yeah.
I think what would be helpful, and just from, if others disagree with me, then feel free, but I think what would be helpful for, at least for me when reviewing it, is when they refer to a quarterly report, it was a weak quarter for all managers, we perhaps get a copy of that report so we can see what they're talking about and say, okay, we get that, or something along those lines.
Let's see how the
That's-
manager did it compared to the index, because that
We
tells
did
how
get a
we did it.
spreadsheet on this for a while.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did.
that's
yeah.
what, we're basically requesting that we get it again.
Let's get it again.
I have a comment
There
on it.
were spreadsheets that came with, attached to the pension committee minutes, organized by different fund levels and how it
So
compared.
it was attached right to as part of the minutes?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my recollection as well.
I have a comment
Either
also.
way, I can certainly get you that. I mean, my office prepares it, so.
Well, I think what we're all saying is that we'd like it to be a part of what we're looking at.
I have a
Do
comment.
my best to get that to you. Because that's a month behind, so that's easily enough. I can easily give you last month's.
I guess no one wants to hear my comment.
I'm sorry.
What is, I'm getting shut down. There's a reference to indices, and sometimes it works, but you have to be very, very careful. For instance, if you went with the MSCI EFA indice that basically covers all the developed countries, Germany does extremely well economically, and so do some of the Scandinavian countries, but you may want to exclude countries and be specific about certain companies that you want in the investment schedule. So I'm not sure that a MSCI EFA indice is a good thing to do, or also the emerging markets. At this particular time, I definitely would want to underweight Russia, because obviously it's kind of like a gangster government and it's very unstable. But if you bought the indice, you're going to have full exposure to Russia. So, and there are different indices that should be recognized, because there are some indices like what they call alpha, where you take the S&P 500 and you exclude the bottom 25%, or you can get an indice where it's very low volatility stocks. So that has done extremely well, and Warren Buffett has talked about that. So these are things that they should consider, but the category indice is very broad, so they have to be more specific in terms of what they want to do.
Okay. Any other comments on the pension committee? We'll move to the Board of Education. Linda, I think the superintendent Linda, what would you like to report to us on the financials?
Okay, so Dr. Meyer sends his regrets that he couldn't be here tonight. He was supposed to be the reviewer, but I brought Dr. Freeman instead, so I think we got it well covered.
Good luck.
So you have my report. We are running at 68.33% at the end of March compared to 67.32%. I think most of that difference, other than timing of some of our larger expenditures, is the fact that there were 3 payrolls in March. Last year, the 3 payrolls hit in April, so it throws it off a little bit. We did receive a little bit of revenue, just over $6,500. The donations that were in memory of Vince Augustine, he was the principal at Cox. The donations are going to be put towards some kind of playground equipment, bench, something for, in his memory. So we have the donations, we're going to have an expense in the next couple of months to offset that revenue that we took in.
At that school.
At Cox
At
School,
Cox.
yes.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'll answer any questions you have on the report.
Anyone on the board looking to raise any questions?
I had a question on revenue. I don't see it here in front of me. I think that it had to do with state revenue coming back. I think we're still anticipating 1.5 million, roughly. Is that all ECS money that we're expecting to get of the, I want to say the numbers were 2.9, and we still had,
that
we still had
doesn't- the
1.5 left.
Education cost sharing grant, the ECS grant doesn't come to the Board of Ed, that goes to the
That goes
town.
to town, right? So
Right.
that's a special ed line then? That's the ECG line then?
So the excess cost grant money, we are expecting more funds, and that'll come at the end of May.
And is
And
the
that
number
should
roughly
be-
1.5 million? I don't know where I saw that number.
It's on the town of Guilford revenues. That,
It's-
Is that where I
sheet is-
saw it?
Part of
Yeah.
the summary.
Okay.
Yeah, it's second one from the bottom. 1.542.
Yeah,
The
that's the one I'm
excess
talking about.
cost should be another,
Yeah, here it is right here. So it was budgeted at 2.9.
right, so that's the remaining education
So this is on the,
cost
this is the town, so
sharing
this is the ECS money then
Right.
that I'm looking at.
Right.
That will go
So
to the
to-
town,
to the
not to
town,
us.
to
right.
the town.
So, but that is what's,
And their payments due at the end of, the state will make it at the end of April.
and that'll be a one-time payment? So what we're going to get will come then and only then?
Right.
this year?
Because they split it up between 3 payments, and it comes,
She's giving us the steel sign back there. 3
3
payments.
payments,
Okay.
October, January, and April, something like that. 50% in one payment, then 25 and 25, if I remember right.
Correct, and keep in mind that the ECS was cut this year by $171,000, so we will be short in that line, which I reported a few months back.
So the 1.5,
It's going to be more like
The
we're
ECS
not going to get the
allotment-
It's gonna be
1.5
more
because
like
that hasn't come in.
1.4, just less than 1.4.
So the
Okay.
total is going to be the $2,740,394. Roughly.
The whole reduction comes in that last payment, it sounds like.
But this is, yes, but this is, so it doesn't go 50, 25, 25 because there's still 50, over 50% off of budget outstanding. So does it really come 25, 25, 50 then?
It comes with whatever they give us. We did two small payments towards the beginning of the year, and then the final payment comes
The
at
final
the end.
Yes,
payment.
the 50%
So
is
the
the
big
final
payment's the
payment.
last.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've had to
Okay.
do the,
Yeah, it doesn't come
ECS.
through our office. It
Okay,
doesn't
so
come
the
through
big
our
payment
office at
comes
all.
in April, and we have already been told that that's going to be lower,
By approximately $171,000.
but there's no obligation for them to give us that amount. We've been told, but it could still come in lower than what they've already said, if they wanted to.
I suppose they could, yes. At this point, that's what we've been told.
this is a copy of a report from the state of Connecticut regarding the education cost sharing, and this is what they had told us. There's no date on this one, but this was recent. This was within
Right,
the
that's
last
the
few
number
months.
we were using
Yes.
for
Right,
budget
so
talk, because that
that's-
was the first reduced number.
Everything that I
That was
see
the
shows
adjusted
that
number
that
for
same
this year.
number.
Right, exactly right.
Okay.
Right, when we put the budget together, we already took into account the reduction.
Right.
So that we were talking with what our actual revenue would be this year.
Okay.
Okay, so you show here that the, on tuition, that it's about 76% expended and encumbered as opposed to 101% the previous year. That's the timing issue? That's what your letter says. The result of the timing of the receipt of the excess cost
Right,
grant.
and if you remember last year, we didn't receive a February allocation of our excess cost grant, so we received everything in May last year. So it's going to throw off those percentages in comparison from March till May, when we get the final payment.
Are you expecting
But
to come in on target or above budget for tuition, or do we have an
We're
idea?
running over in special education.
Here's
In
the
special ed, yeah.
tuition report.
Okay, great.
It's over by quite a bit, right? Didn't we-
Yes,
Yeah.
it's over by a significant amount, not
Yeah.
as significant as was last year, but still by
Yeah.
a significant amount.
It's a little bit misleading when you look at this because you're
It
thinking
really
we're
is.
75% through the year, and you see 75%, I'm not saying the numbers are incorrect, and just, it gets thrown off with these payments, that if you're running ahead, it looks like, oh, we're right on schedule. No, we're not.
No,
And would you,
We typically are not,
yeah.
Right.
and it's just due to the
And
fluctuation.
and tuition, they bill in so many varying ways, whether it's annual,
Yeah.
monthly, quarterly, half year.
Every vendor has a different billing
Everybody has,
cycle.
yeah, it's,
now can you quantify the special services? I'd like to just break that into its components if we can. Why are we higher on special services than we were at a comparable point last year? We're like 24% over.
special services is the contracted services for special education students. So it's evaluations, it's physical therapy, it's,
It's going to be behavior therapists, it's going to be any sort of.
nursing services.
It's higher than
It's
last
in-house.
year.
But those are more in-house,
Yes.
correct?
It's
Yes.
in-house, but it's higher than last. Right.
And again, it's going to be variable on student needs, and it is such a small N of students that it is very difficult to compare those needs year to year. It is based on the students, it's based on what's happening in their lives and what supports they need at that moment in time in the school system. So it's a volatile number, it's difficult to make comparisons year to year.
So not even year to year, I would say, but even month, I mean, from September to January, there could be a substantial change in the needs of a student, which would have an impact on
Yeah,
the budget.
one student goes into crisis, students move into or out of the district, and you're going to have significant variance in that number. A number of new students move into district. There may be testing needs associated with getting to know those students. There may be services that they had in their previous district that we weren't previously providing to any of our students. So yes, it's going to be very volatile.
And just to follow up on that, is the law, I know the law is we have to provide them with the best education or to suit their needs. So if they're getting a service in another district and Guilford doesn't offer that service, what's the process that you go through? Do you do an analysis to see if we provide it, or are you obligated to immediately implement that other service they were receiving in another district?
It's the PPT process, and so when a new student moves into our school district, we would immediately convene a planning and placement team. Our staff would look at the existing IEP, which is the individual education plan that the students brought in with them. There's no legal obligation to continue the previous plan as written, but it's our job to evaluate that plan, and generally there is a transition period where we try to meet the services that were being provided in a previous district and then work from that point forward. In fact, there was a recent letter to the editor in the Courier that talks exactly about that. It was a family that moved from another state, came in with existing IEPs, and were appreciative of the way the staff at Leeds transitioned their students from a different state and a different school system into our system.
So maybe not necessarily the same services that they were receiving in the district that they moved from, but it was adapted to what we were able to provide here and for the benefit, for the best
Right.
outcome for the student.
What we would not be allowed to do is look at that existing plan for the child and say something like, oh, we don't do that in Guilford. You're not allowed to say we don't offer that kind of service. We would have to look at what the student needs and meet that child's individual needs. It's done in a team structure. Parents are part of that team, but we would have to look and transition the child in and do what was right for the child.
So the parent, it would be 1P, the principal is the second, and the teacher is the third, right?
Yep, and additional resource people as well. A PPT requires representation of the family, administration, special education teachers, regular education teachers, and specialty services like school psychologists, school social worker, or special education teacher.
Now, as of this year, you've started to, you've added, actually it's on this sheet as well, the additional category of high-cost in-district students. It's relatively new. I mean, I think we've seen it for a few months. But it's now staying at 2 students, one at the high school level, one at the elementary school level. Is there any projection of where this is going? I mean,
It's something that we're going to continue to pay attention to. So in the past, it was unlikely that we would keep a student in district, or that we would have any students still in district who cost more than 4.5 times our regular per student expenditure. Now that we are building out our programming and have the capacity to keep more challenging students in district, it goes right to those special services that you were just asking about. Students who remain in district but require the addition of those special services, if they break that 4.5 times threshold, we will be applying for the excess cost for those students. It was simply that in the past we didn't have capacity to hold any of those students in district, and so never had the opportunity to apply for those excess costs for students we held. It was only the tuition students who ever broke that threshold.
So you're in the
past.
process of evaluating that category or that subcategory for the new year.
Sometimes to the earlier question, we won't know that a child breaks that threshold until in the middle of the year. It's not always going to be possible. For some students who have, for instance, weekly behavioral support or daily behavioral support, we'll be able to project out and know that child would break the threshold. But say a child who goes into crisis in December, we might not have anticipated that child breaking the 4.5 time threshold, but if they do because of a crisis and supports that are related to a crisis, we would then pull the information together and apply at that time if we met the state's timelines.
But the ECG applies whether the child is being educated in district or out of district.
Total cost regardless of where that cost accrues, correct?
Are there any other questions on the Board of Education's report?
I have one question regarding upkeep of building and grounds. It looks like we're over budget. Where do we stand on that? What's causing the over expenditure?
You didn't get as much money as you wanted for it last year.
That might be part of it.
Yeah, a lot of that is required maintenance, service, inspections, testing that we have to do. And then it's also upkeep of building and grounds. If we've had very large HVAC repairs, and we know at this point don't have an in-house HVAC person.
So they've been
So it's
contracted
all
out.
been contracted out. So we've incurred expenses there and have a little bit of savings in custodial facility salaries because we're not paying an HVAC person. So that's part of that, along with the additional testing.
Okay, thank you.
You had actually sent an email after the last meeting regarding that, about the encumbrances, because I think I might have been the one that questioned that number exactly like Peter did, but there's 274,000 in encumbrances, and if they need to be canceled, then they'll be canceled.
Right. At this point, through the end of the year, we're going to leave them open because we don't
Right.
know when something's going to break, if we need to fix something. When we get closer to the end of the year, we'll start
Then you'll
taking
know.
a better look at the blanket purchase orders and closing those. Okay.
Speaking of HVAC, something I read in one of these packets, I was a little confused. It made it sound as if there were new problems, which I don't think is the case, that have been identified at 3 or 4 of the schools. It implied that it was going to cost us money, and it had something to do with heat or HVAC. I think it might have just been either it was the way I interpreted the wording or the way it was written. No, it wasn't the energy. It said,
Every winter there are new problems that
no,
run
they made it sound,
into
it
something.
was a comment. I'll find it and get it to you, but I saw something that I thought was odd. And then I had one question on the warrants. With the food service health, is that vendor always there? It's page 10 of 11, United Hear Health. Are they always on there? I don't recognize
Yes.
it. They
Yes.
are? Okay.
Yeah, they switched over to the medical plan through Unite Here, their union, 3 years ago?
4 years ago.
Okay. And are the food service is their own collective bargaining unit? They're the only ones in there?
Correct.
Right.
It's a standalone unit. And they're the only unit that has not moved into the high deductible health plan because they do their health care through their unit.
Okay.
There's miscellaneous HVAC work that's mentioned all over the building committee
What's that?
minutes, all over the building committee meeting minutes. And then on March 13th, let me just see here, the March 13th Operations Committee update on facilities project. This is in the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed minutes, operations, March 13th. Part of what was sent, there was an update on facilities projects, and there was electrical updates at Jones, Cox, and Lee. Review of HVAC projects at Jones and Baldwin, putting air conditioning in the gym at Melissa Jones and Baldwin.
Maybe they're
There's-
looking at
there's-
electrical upgrades at Jones, Cox, and Lead. Is that new, or was that, we haven't?
No,
started-
that's always been in our five-year plan.
Yeah, that's
But
part
we
of
haven't started, we're not there yet, right?
The-
That's coming, that's still to come.
The Baldwin bond is the bond that will be before the voters tomorrow, beginning that work in Baldwin.
This says Jones, Cox, and Lead.
But
Yeah.
that's part of the bond, isn't that part of
It
the
is.
bond?
I believe it is,
for-
yes. It's for the electrical work, which is the
Electrical
first phase,
upgrades.
yes.
Electrical upgrades.
The electrical upgrades
Upgrades.
precede
Those
the
three.
changes in the
Okay.
units, but it's always been part of the original package.
And
Okay,
that's one of the bond questions.
okay, that's the one that I saw. Thank you, Michael.
There's a $18,500 invoice for tuition settlement. What, how does that come about?
So in special education, that PPT process, there is a due process that is associated with that. Should the PPT, and that would generally be the parents in the school system, not be able to come to an agreement, there is a due process that exists in statute. Oftentimes, what happens is as we begin the due process series of meetings and requirements, the district and the family will come to an agreement, and oftentimes it involves a settlement of cost. That is likely what you're looking at there. I will note that Connecticut is one of only 7 states where in the due process structure, burden of proof always lies on the school district. And so you may see settlement of costs that are a business decision because it is easier and more expedient to settle and move forward than to go through the entire due process.
Thank you.
Would that process have something to contribute to the increase in the legal expense that we see?
It could, yes.
Well, that legal's not just special ed legal.
No, it's
all
throughout.
legal.
Yeah,
So
that's our
it's all
negotiations.
Right.
Negotiations, labor concerns, and special education concerns are primarily, those would be the 3 large areas of our legal expenditures.
That line's projected to be way over budget this year.
Mr. Bloss would tell you it's often money well spent.
He's got to be an attorney.
I won't argue it.
I have one thing that just, perhaps it's not a responsibility, therefore why am I mentioning it? But I've never seen this before. You had a special meeting notice where you discussed the performance and evaluation of members of the Board of Education?
It is in fact a good,
Elected board?
yeah, it's in fact a good practice for boards and superintendents to occasionally come together and evaluate our performance.
Oh, okay.
And so the board did recently meet.
It's a self-help.
It was a Saturday retreat, and the board self-evaluated our performance as a leadership team. The superintendent and the board, we were the only people in attendance, and we evaluated our performance and we used a protocol that is provided by the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education to conduct that exercise. It was I thought it was a positive and beneficial day that was spent together. It was a good use of a
Would
Saturday
have liked to have
morning.
been a fly on that wall. Curious, we have an energy study meeting coming up in May, and one of the sheets that Linda provided us with, I believe, is on electrical usage, energy comparison of the old high school and the new high school.
I don't think I got that.
I didn't get that sheet.
It is, it's there, it's attached.
It was when Linda sent
Oh,
the email after our last meeting on the 28th of March. It was attached to that.
Yeah, it was.
If you weren't looking for the attachment, you
I
probably
didn't see
didn't
it, okay.
print it, yeah.
So I'm a bit puzzled. The old high school, in its last 2 years, was at $340,000 in energy consumption. And the new high school is at $370,000.
So you have to keep in mind that the new high school is larger than the old high school, and the new high school is significantly more complex. The new high school provides active ventilation, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The old high school had windows. The new high school measures for heat, humidity, CO2. The new high school is fully climate controlled all through the school year. So we always knew that the new high school was going to be more energy intensive, but it's also more energy efficient. So you're getting more service for more square feet at what comes close to a break-even number, but it's not a complete wash, and it's certainly not an overall absolute savings. We've got a larger building, and we get more service out of that building.
We are going into this meeting on May 10th or 11th among the 4 boards.
May 10th and 11th, you were
May
right.
10th and 11th. It's May 10th and 11th.
Yes, there's going to be 2
The
presentations.
rest of these, we only have to go to 1,
Unless you're real.
unless you really are a glutton for it. And that will address this issue as well.
The new high school will be looked at, but we'll be looking at all town buildings and looking for ways to be more energy efficient and to save monies across all the town buildings.
Okay.
There was a comment in those operations committee meeting minutes about the Tecogen,
The Tecogen, yeah?
Tecogen
I
system.
think. You might know better than I do.
Tecogen, close enough, right? Was not up and running until the summer, and that usually helps provide even more savings.
Yeah, so you might see an additional offset as we move forward. That
Right.
was one of the last cost-saving measures to come online. Thank
Right.
you for recalling that.
I'm wondering if, while you folks from the education department are here, we couldn't move agenda item 6 up a bit ahead of the town government, just to deal with that one issue. Item 6 is consider and take possible action on request for distribution of the 2015-16 excess course grant, prior year adjustment in the amount of $288,795 to the Board of Ed. I wonder, would you have a proposal to actually consider that now before we review the town finances?
Yeah, I know that Mr. Bloss sent a request forward. We'd be happy to answer any questions or speak to any concerns that you have based on that request.
I thought we'd already agreed to, I thought we'd already taken care of
I think
this.
we talked about it, but we needed to officially
Need to officially
move the money,
Vote
I
on
guess.
it,
And
the transfer.
based on the letter that was written
This
by
is
Mr.
the letter,
Bloss
by the
and
way.
seemed
I know that
in
I'm familiar with the
concurrence
letter.
with our first selectman. I had no issue with it.
I have no issue with it. It's fine with me.
Okay.
So this has been done in the past. It's been a while. Usually the adjustments are a smaller amount, and we haven't requested it. I did speak to Andy Potocny, and he said, oh yeah, there were years where we requested it when it was a little bit bigger. I know back in 2005, we did request it. There was the one set of documentation I could find going through old files. So it's $288,795 that'll be distributed to the town with the final ECS cost, the ECS payment at the end of April. And our request is to transfer that money to the Board of Education, since it is for the excess cost grant.
It would be used specifically for special education expenditures. We're currently running a deficit in special education, which is larger than that amount. We would use it to offset that deficit.
Oh, I see. So you're going to take the ECS money
But it's
that
not
we're getting,
ECS
I know, but
money.
it's ECG money you're due. So you're going to take the ECS money when the town gets it and use that to cover the ECG.
No, when the town gets their ECS money,
Right.
the state's is tacking on.
An additional 288 of ECG money that's being
That was from a
released.
previous
Right,
year.
right, okay.
So
Oh, so it's the
it's-
EC, okay. I
it's-
thought we'd already gotten the money.
We did,
No.
this is an adjustment. We received our ECG. Now, this is an adjustment to the ECG that is being released with the ECS.
Okay. I thought we'd already gotten the 288.
So instead of coming to the Board of Education the
It's
way
going to the town.
ECG typically would, it's gone to the town instead.
The adjustment every
The
year goes to
adjustment
the
did.
town,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Yeah, in the past, or at least in the recent past, we've not requested it. We have been able to cover special education overruns with salary surplus. This year, the salary surplus has been taken in advance. We're not anticipating a salary surplus, are still running a special education overrun. This would go a long way to mitigating that overrun.
So
I'll
So
move-
I move that we
Go ahead.
allow for the transfer of the $288,795 from the town to the Board of Ed for the distribution of their 2015-16 excess cost grant, which is coming to the town, which should have gone to the Board of Ed in the first place, but since it's delayed, it's coming to the town, and we want to give it back to the Board of Ed where it belongs.
Second.
That's a long,
That was very, yeah.
we paraphrase it as, the issue before us is to approve the distribution of the 2015-16 excess course grants prior year adjustment in the amount of $288,795 to the Board of Education. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's done.
Thank you, that's very much appreciated, and we very much appreciate Mr. Miles' support of the request as well. Thank you.
One question I had, just to follow up on, with the more climate-controlled atmosphere at the high school, are you finding greater use of it throughout the summer, or years when you typically, or the time of year when you typically see less activity up at the school because it's now climate-controlled and presumably more comfortable in July and August? Is there more activity going on up there? Or
I
not
think
really?
it might be too early to say. We've really only had it for one summer. We're only in our second school year, so last year was that first summer. I might just say that it's too early to know. It is a busy spot over the summer, so I do expect that, yes, it'll continue to be busy and even become more busy. It's more usable space in July and August than it had been.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Well, and there was one small item in the amount of $5,950,822, and we do not approve it, we acknowledge it. I'd like to have someone propose acceptance or acknowledgement.
Move acceptance.
Okay.
Second.
Of the amount in Board of Education expenditures in the month of March 2017 in the amount of $5,950,822. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No.
Thank you both. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Mary Jane, we're now.
I feel as if I've already given my report. I'd just like to add that the town will be distributing that money as soon as we receive the funds. So.
Okay, would you like to review the revenue portion of your report first?
Okay. As of the end of March, we are 75% through our fiscal year. We have brought in 97.9% of our budget so far, which is just about where we were last year. All of our revenues seem to be on track. I've reviewed much of them over the last couple of months, but if you have any specific questions, I can try to answer them.
Any questions on revenue?
It looks as though the tax collector's already collected everything that they're supposed to.
Yes, of course, that does include some of prior year as well, so.
So that could.
We're waiting for more, we're greedy, we're waiting for more.
That could go higher.
It could, absolutely.
go higher.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, any
We have 3
further-
more months.
Any other observations or questions on revenue? Let's turn to expenditures.
I did send out a revised expenditure report. You should have gotten it, but I did bring copies, just in our effort to try to work with Munis to provide these reports. We had a little glitch in the way we asked for the information, but bear with us as we work through it. Just change the percentages slightly. Again, at 75% through the year, our bottom line is at 73.3% expended. I don't really have anything additional to discuss this month as far as the expenditures that I haven't already discussed. So if you have any specific questions that we haven't already talked about, I'd entertain them.
One.
Yep.
The only one that really got my attention, probably the rest of the board as well, was engineering and public works.
Okay.
Just curious what the report is from them. I mean, it was let's see, it's April 17th, so I don't think I'm jinxing anything on winter weather, right?
Correct.
Hope not.
If it snows, you could put it all on me. I'm going on camera with that.
Correct. We did an analysis of where Public Works would be at the end of the year, keeping in mind that there's a number of encumbrances still listed on the books for them. Based on my review of Public Works and all of our departments, I was able to report to the first selectman that we should be well off at the end of the year, well balanced. So he did release the hold on capital expenditures again, in the hopes that there aren't any type of storm emergencies which could happen. But at this point, we look like we should be okay.
But we are, in both summer and winter road maintenance, considerably ahead. We were at 111% on summer and 119% on winter, but
A significant amount of encumbrances that may or may not be used by the end of the year. We do encumber the full amount of the money at the beginning, and we tend to give some of that back by the end of the year, depending
it's
on our
given
true
back.
needs. Normally, that is how it works, yes.
are there any other questions on expenditures? Any on warrants? I saw a couple,
Okay?
but I don't want to. Anyone else?
Go ahead.
Okay, I had two things that caught my eye. The health department, over $9,000 for medical exams. Could you explain that?
What page are you on?
Page 18, dated 4/11.
I don't think it's the health department.
I don't, yeah, I believe that's just under general, I think.
department?
Yeah, it's quite fire.
It's fire.
Yeah, it can't be the health department, fire. So those are the exams necessary
That's
for
for
our
fire?
firefighters, yes. The health department is the next category, which is right underneath there.
That was fire. We have a retainer for a psychiatrist in the area of youth and family services. Is that an annual retainer?
It's a contract, yes.
So that when you see a number here, that's not the annual figure.
No,
The number here is a bit over 14,000.
if it's the one I know of, I believe we pay that quarterly.
Youth and family services.
Yes, with Youth and Family Services, if it's the correct one I'm thinking of. It is a contracted position.
Has that changed any over the last year or two?
Not as far as I know.
Any other questions? Anything on special fund or general fund expenditures?
I wasn't going to, but just the very top one on special fund, train. Town buildings, improvement, energy upgrades, towns. That's coming out of, is that coming out of bonding? That's one of the bonded projects, isn't it?
Probably,
I was-
since it's in the special funds, yes.
Yeah, I was looking at town buildings improvement.
Right.
And where was that? Was it town hall? Where was that upgrade? Trace and replace controllers. Where was that done? Was that a school or one of the town facilities?
That I'm not sure. It would be one, it is one of the town
It's-
buildings. It would
it's
say
the
Board of Ed
2.2
if it
bond.
was, right.
Right, but I was just curious which building that was.
I'm afraid I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's town hall.
Town hall?
It was a town hall.
Yeah, okay.
And also a category that perhaps you can explain what it is. Retirees, medical, we went into a special fund there for about $4,300 for daycare, VNA, and over 65.
Where are you looking?
Anthem. It's on the special fund report, the fourth item. Fifth item.
Right, the retiree medical is paid out for our retirees. It's where we would be paying Anthem for retiree medical.
So there's a
It just-
special fund down there for that.
Yes, yes, there is.
You know how much is in that special fund?
I don't. We typically don't have a budget for some of these funds. It's transfers in. I believe that's how this one works.
Okay. Those are my questions. Any other questions for anyone? Chair will entertain a motion to approve town expenditures for the month of March in the amount of $2,292,355.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is there any other questions? Committee reports, any?
I have, are we going to talk about the golf course for a second? We have to talk about the golf course. I just wouldn't be a normal
We
meeting if we
are.
didn't talk about the
Yes,
golf
we
course.
are. I beg your pardon.
I noticed there must be something missing because
There is something missing.
the revenues are,
There's
there's no,
also medical benefits.
yeah, there's also
And
medical
I'm sorry
benefits.
about that.
And
Medical
building
benefits
permits,
and golf course.
yeah.
So let's go to the golf course first.
That's fine. I noticed that the expenses were up and the revenues were down, and I'm thinking there must be a change in accounting or something because January, the first 3 months of 16, we had $17,000 in memberships and $2,000 in greens fees, and this year we have $5,700 in memberships. So it's down 70, it says down almost 71%. So it almost looks as if there are a lot of receipts that haven't come in yet. What?
Back to the table.
Sure,
Yeah, might as
there
well.
is a reason for this, right?
Last year was a really nice year. We had less snow. We opened the golf course last year on March 10th.
Wow.
So we had a whole month extra of revenue at this time than we do now. In addition, the Golf Commission last year offered an incentive to their members to pay their membership dues early. So a lot of them came in sooner. So the revenue came in a lot sooner last year. So we're in a sense lagging behind a month. So
Okay.
you should see that number rise next month's report.
Okay.
I see we have a pro now.
We do.
We do.
Any questions, any further questions on the golf course? Medical benefits, any comments on that report?
Still running a large projected surplus.
Which is a good thing.
We are.
It's almost basically back to normal. We're having some good months there on the financial side and on the employee side.
That's good.
On the health side.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just like to note on the medical report that this year you're seeing a little bit of an increase in the expenditures. One thing we're not sure, because we don't have history, is, but we're thinking that because of the HSA, we've kind of gone through all the employees paying their portion of the first part of their deductible, and now we may be seeing our portion kicking in. We won't know that until we have the HSA for a while, but I think I've reported before that we might hit this, and it's an assumption we're making at this point, but we could see that number staying up now for the rest of the year. Not sure where that will go, but it'll take us a couple of years before we have a true picture of how the HSA will affect our medical report.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we have done. There are no committee reports. Any old business? New business? Anyone wishing to address public comment? Not hearing any, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
I'd just like to remind everybody to go vote tomorrow.
Unfortunately, by the time this tape is
I know. Well, for all those people in the room who are eligible to vote, I'd like to remind them to go and
Go out
vote.
and vote. Meeting's adjourned.